perhaps 24 hours is ridiculous, but so is CBC has learned, and then basically giving your story verbatim. How would you, if you had the judge's robes on, how would you arbitrate that? What's a fair outcome for that?
It's not a copyright issue. That's the point. And I get the frustration. I rather listen to the Canaland story that tried to highlight some of that stuff. And as someone who blogs a lot of stuff that sometimes is the first to be blogged on it, to access the information requests, I am familiar with other people writing or rewriting my stuff, sometimes with a link back to my blog, sometimes not. So be it. I don't see that as a copyright issue. I think the value that a news organization brings and the willingness for people to go to it is based at least in part on that ability to both run exclusives, to make it understandable to users, to readers, and to continue to advance that story. And none of that has anything to do with protecting the specific expression.
To gain protection over facts, which you can't do through copyright. Certainly the news organizations can protect the broadcast ability to describe the facts, but it's absurd to me to think that they would have exclusive rights over the story or the facts underlying that story for a certain amount of time. That's not what copyright is intended to do. And then to go back to your point, to have someone take a song that's not copyrighted and build something on it, that's the whole purpose of copyright, like Michael said and suggested. But there's also an amount that you can take from things that are still within copyright. We have fair dealing laws, or exceptions in Canada, that permit people to do that, to build on existing works and create new works. And that's part of the balance of copyright. In addition to fair dealing, there's also new exceptions that were introduced in 2012 in the Modernization Act for user-generated content. So we do have lots of exceptions that permit people, creative people, to make use of existing works and to build on that and to create and to add to the cultural story.
Sure. I can't disagree with that at all. I think the bigger issue, really, I guess as it pertains to music, to be honest with you, I think I'm on this panel because I have some interesting sort of anecdotes as a musician. And as a video producer, I've seen both sides where, I've had to fight hard to get that remuneration of music that I've written or performed. But then as a video producer, I also, of course, use a lot of stock imagery and stock music that has to get paid for. And I think she's here, but my associate producer can vouch for the fact that we're very good about making sure that the people are paid, because that's one of our core beliefs. But really the bigger issue is to me that this new technology is coming along, and I mentioned the fact earlier that people might be in a position to exploit it, is they're fighting hard. They're fighting hard with money, and they're fighting hard to get lawyered up and basically try to convince us that these new streams should not necessarily be taxed, or there shouldn't be tariffs on it. Those are terms I'm not particularly comfortable with, because the example that I was thinking of, that if I were to steal my neighbor's car and then join Uber and start using it and started collecting money, if finally my neighbor caught me and I got busted, if I went in front of a judge, he or she wouldn't say, well, look, you're going to have to pay some tariffs for the money that you made. You're going to have to pay a percentage, right? Because it's not fair. It really wasn't your money to start with, right? I get my ass thrown in jail. So I don't think there's any difference. If there's music on the internet, it doesn't matter whose dumb pipes they are, or if there's I'm going to throw it wide open. What's the purpose of an iPhone, right? What's the purpose what's the precursor to the iPhone, the iPod, people take advantage of it, and then they use it. Apple, really kind of did start this whole revolution. They're on the cusp of becoming the first $1 trillion company ever. Conservative pricing has not been an issue for them, right? I think a couple of cents on every dollar that they make is a reasonable way of saying, you know what, we are using somebody else's content to sell products. So follow the money. That's what I believe. You got to follow the money. Who's making money off of your work, and share it. When government gets involved, I'm a little skeptical of that, to be quite honest with you. should they be setting the rates of what should be paid for a song? I don't know. I think there could be a natural, holistic relationship between technology and the creators of technology and those who have creative work. I think there can be. But as I said, I have to go back to enforcement. You know, the company that's all of a sudden wanting to, release a product that would innately use somebody else's intellectual property has to know that if you want to do business in Canada or wherever else, these are the laws. This is what you have to adhere to. That's the way I look at it. I don't consider that a little bit.
Michael just wanted to jump in on something.
Sure he does.
And I don't think anybody takes issue with the notion that creators and musicians ought to be paid. I think that if you take a look at what is taking place today, people have music on their iPhones today because they subscribe to Spotify or they access other services. Indeed, that's exactly what the industry said would happen any number of years ago. Indeed, the industry argued against the levies back as part of the 2012 reforms, in part because they said the world is moving towards, for music, more like a cable subscription type model. And in fact, they were right. If you take a look at the revenues for Soap, take a look at the Canadian music industry revenues, they are growing rapidly. In fact, we jumped ahead of Australia last year, the 6th largest music market in the world. SOCAN has record revenues being generated through internet streaming. And so the idea that consumers are going around listening to unpaid music actually is not consistent with what we're seeing take place as people move towards more and more paid streaming services for which they've paid for. And even to the extent to which there are still people out there who are buying CDs and then converting those CDs to listen to on their devices. I would submit to you that there surely is an implied license to be able to take the music that is on the CD and listen to it on the device of your choice, because no one would buy that thing if they were told that you can only listen to it off the CD itself in the context of your own home. And so the notion that we are still talking about peer-to-peer file sharing of music, which Sandvine tells us is virtually non-existent as a percentage of network traffic, strikes me as, with all respect, a little bit of an outdated conversation. The world has moved on. The industry's been successful. So how do artists get paid? They don't get paid by enforcement. They get paid by business models, and we're seeing those business models working.
Okay, you guys are really making me think here. Let me just take a breath. So in terms of traditional indigenous music, and so I'm not talking about powwow music or the music you hear from a tribe called Red. I'm talking about our traditional ceremonial songs that have been sung at the same time, in the same place, in the same way, in the same ceremony, year after year after year after year. And there are places and peoples who have done that and where that's done. That there's a legislative and a policy void for protecting those songs or imagery from being appropriated by an individual or an entity that can copyright and then convert it into something which they in turn sell for profit, and again which the peoples from which it originated either, number one, did not want commercialized, or number two, received no monetary remuneration for. And what I'll say in the policy and the legislative context is, with the endorsement, with the adoption of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and its endorsement by the Government of Canada, the human rights framework within which Canada has declared it's going to operate changed. It's changed. And so it's opened up new rights. And then the realization of rights. It hasn't opened up new rights, but it's opened up the acknowledgement of rights. And so the final thing is, in that realm is, what do peoples with the right to self-determination then want to do? Leave the laws within our own communities, or have the laws allowed for within Canadian legislation? So it's complicated. Now I'm making you guys think. I can see it.